Of course, Jeffrey already set the tone for the first leg of our conversation. And joining us is former Army spokesperson, Brigadier General Usman Sani. He joins us from our Abuja studio. And we also are expecting to join us Global Affairs Analyst, International Media and Communication Strategist, and of course, former consultant to ECOWAS, Mr. Paul Ejime. He'll join us shortly, I believe. But let's begin with Brigadier General Usman Sani. Our newspaper review guest already reacted to the position put out by the Sahelian states and how it seemingly contradicts with that explanation provided by the Nigerian Air Force. You are a retired Army general, and of course you know the operating procedures that obtain. We know that the three Sahelian states exited ECOWAS in January. So could it be possible that the crew were not operating based on updated protocol as far as those three states are concerned? Or, if you like, what do you believe happened such that there's a contradicting position put out by the authority of the Sahelian states and the Air Force, Nigerian Air Force?
I think, good morning, and thank you so much for having me on your program. The thing is that really, first and foremost, it's a thing of concern, especially to Nigerians, due to dearth of information. I have seen the statement issued by the Nigerian Air Force, and of course that of the AEC, AES, as it is, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, in respect of their own side of the story and Nigerian side of the story. But the truth is that the aircraft in question is more or less like a cargo aircraft, C-130 as it is. And we have had the privileges while I was in service to use it for transportation and other logistic supplies here and there, especially in some parts of African countries where troops are deployed and then, and so on. So now I think it's just a matter of understanding and constructive engagement between Nigeria and, of course, the AES countries, in the sense that if Nigeria meant bad, they wouldn't have sent a cargo aircraft. It could have been something else. So there should be. But quite unfortunate, yes. To answer the question whether they have not updated the protocol and all the rest, everybody is conscious of the fact that no love lost between Nigeria and, of course, almost all the other ECOWAS members with these countries that exited, the economic community of West African states for obvious reasons. You know what happened, toppling democratic governance, and of course the stance of ECOWAS, especially that time when Nigeria was in a position of leadership, is what's matter of principles. And given the level of propaganda and all the rest of the thing, and I've had instances just this morning, I was made to understand that Nigeria in particular is putting more stringent measures about goods coming from Nigeria, unlike in the past. They are not being checked properly, but now it is. And, kind of with every passing day, there is one stumbling block in respect of the relationship between these countries and Nigeria. And I think what is important now is to ensure the safety of our, pilots and crew, as well as our aircraft. And that can be done through constructive engagement. Of course, by the time Nigeria come up clean with the reason why. And these things can happen. Aircraft is just like anybody who has been using any machine whatsoever. It could be a car, even a motorcycle, even bicycle can break down at least expected moments. It has happened several times, even with international flights and even local flights. I could remember just recently, we were flying in from Sokoto to Abuja, and then we were diverted to Kano. In fact, I was even angry that why should they divert us to Kano? Why not Kaduna, that is closer, and all the rest? It's just because an aircraft developed technical faults at the Abuja airport. It was unforeseen. I think the most important thing is to ensure there is an understanding. These things can happen. And the good thing about all these things is that there seems to be some kind of diplomatic row and all the rest, but deep inside them, particularly the armed forces, I believe, I don't know of the present set, but the previous sets that have just passed out or graduated from the Armed Forces Command and Staff College, we have students from this, countries that are making all this trouble. So it is not as bad as it is, and I'm so sure this impasse will come to pass with proper constructive engagement.
Perhaps that's why, ECOWAS is responding. But one thing is, significant from what you have said. It is the tension in relations between Nigeria, or Nigeria and the other West African neighbors and their former members in ECOWAS, being the 3 Sahelian states. Let me take you to Mr. Ejime now, who is a former consultant to ECOWAS. He has since joined us virtually. I'm glad you're following. I'm hoping that you've been following the conversation before you joined us. Talk to us about what a state of emergency declared by ECOWAS in the sub-region, what does it mean against the backdrop of the principles and the codes, guiding the establishment of ECOWAS itself?
Thank you, Bukola, for having me. And I hope you do not retire me several times. I'm still a consultant, so if you have work for me to do, I can do it, okay? So I'm still working for ECOWAS in a way, not regular staff.
Pardon me.
Yes, so I am following the conversation, and who wouldn't? After, for instance, we survived the coup. I was there. I was in Guinea-Bissau as an observer, and then barely made it to get out of that country. And here we are with Benin Republic. So, state of emergency. Well, I think it is time that ECOWAS stopped talking. The time for them to talk was, many years ago. But they have allowed things to get to this level. The horse has already bolted out of the steeple, as it were. What does it mean? You have talked about deploying standby force. That is the highest you can do, using force. But why allow things to get to this level where you have to begin to use force? You could have done preventive diplomacy. You could have done the, nipping things in the bud. For instance, where all these things are happening today, the danger signals have always been there. For instance, in Benin, let's begin with Benin. Benin there, President Talon had violated ECOWAS protocols. One, he set up, he changed the constitution to make, the protocol says there should be no change of any law or constitution or 6 months before an election. Benin has an election in January and then in April. In November, Talon changed the constitution to change the tenure of the president from 5 to 7 years, and then created what he called a Senate that will be populated by former heads of state, including himself, that will have power even more than the president of the republic or even the parliament. And then the opposition there have actually been wiped out. They don't have any say. He's not running in this election, but he's putting his protege there. And many opposition leaders, some of them are either in jail or they have fled the country. So the political space has been shrunk. One of those jailed for, you can't believe it, for terrorism is a woman, a lady, Rechia. This is a lady who, because she mustered the courage to oppose Talon in an election, she was, the trial was, what you have in all these Trump prop charges. He was charged for terrorism and has been in jail since 2021 or so, for 20 years. That's what they jailed her for. So that is then the leaders have conveniently distanced themselves from the population. And so you hear that there is a disconnect, there is discontentment, and that is why we are saying, who are the cause for all this? It is the political leadership. They are rulers. They are no longer leading. But if you are a leader, you listen to those who are leading. But here, these people are going on as if they are demigods,
well, Mr.
that they are autocrats.
If I can comment quickly.
The same thing in Guinea-Bissau.
Right. Pardon me. Just before you go on, Mr. Jimmy, I just want to quickly ask you, can we then say that Nigeria protected democracy by the actions it took in Benin, or a contraption that we're describing as democracy?
Okay. This is the complexity of the whole situation. Will you say that what Talon was doing was democratic? No. Will you also support military rule? No. So this is the quagmire. I think this was where President Tinubu found himself and decided to say, more or less, this is self-preservation. He has seen that the fire or danger was getting closer home. Remember that in October there was reported the coup. You know, some people are being tried, and here we are. Nigeria didn't observe the national parade. You know, people are making a lot of suggestions there. And then we had Guinea-Bissau. After Guinea-Bissau, then the thing was getting closer home. I think Nigeria had to act. But the issue is, should you have waited till this time? When all these leaders were doing all that they have been doing, violating the ECOWAS protocol, and ECOWAS didn't call them out, and then allowing leaders to run roughshod over their citizens, and nothing happened. There are protocols that ECOWAS should use. It's not only military rule that is unconstitutional change of government. These leaders have been carrying on what you call political coups, constitutional coups, ballot box coups. They are rigging election. They are trampling on the rights of their citizens. These are against what ECOWAS stands for. So are they just waking up to it? That is the question. So Nigeria, if you ask me, Benin is a strategic country for the economically and in security terms. So Nigeria couldn't have left, because anything that happens there, we have a blow, consequences on Nigeria.
Let me come
so
inside
Nigeria
now.
have waited till there is anarchy in that country. I think that is the dilemma that President Tinubu found himself.
Brigadier, let me bring you the Brigadier General. General, in fact, you wear two caps right now. Now you have left the military, so you observe things a little bit more broadly. And the dilemma that Mr. Ejime has put out, and we've seen the plethora of ludicrosity of what is called a contraption of democracy. Neighboring Cameroon elected a man who is on his way to 100 years, surrounded by his colleagues who are within that age bracket. At least maybe he's about that age as well. Guinea-Bissau, we understand Omar Mbalo, having known that this election may not go in his way, he was the one that announced the coup and began to give pressers. We don't know what that kind of coup looks like. And then look at the remarks by Mr. Ejime, or what is being played out by Talon, who is not going to seek re-election, but he's preserving himself and his cronies. And so we're seeing a mess of what we call democracy. My colleague Kayode will say, maybe this is our own style of democracy. When you see all of this and you see the military incursion, is it a valid reason for the military to step in? Because nobody wants to see the military in power, no matter how great they sound, because of what it is. You know, it's a different kettle of fish altogether when you have military in power. But now that you're out of the military and seeing things in a lot more broadly, what do you make of it? How should citizens approach this situation? On one hand, the politicians are reckless. On the other hand, they don't want the military to take over.
Well, I think let's start from your first question. I think you asked whether it is a valid reason for the military, given the plethora of all the misgovernance that you have talked about. The answer is capital no. It is not an excuse. for military to take over any constitutional government, regardless of the circumstances, because, the Constitution itself is the grand norm of all the laws of any given state. Therefore, it makes provision for, changes in terms of governance, and usually through the electoral process. So anybody to, whether bloodless coup or whatever it is absolutely wrong and an aberration. And we have seen the impact in so many other places, especially here in Nigeria. The society is better off in a democratic governance. But the truth is that, yes, there is a great concern. I don't know whether it is an African thing or something. The world has agreed that democratic governance is the best form of governance, and Africans have imbibed that spirit. But unfortunately, instead of making the best of this system of governance to develop and enhance the well-being of the people, the other way is the case. They tend to perpetuate themselves, tamper with the electoral process. You have seen it. You have just mentioned several, some instances, Guinea-Bissau, Cameroon, and also now the latest in town, the Benin Republic. And there are several other countries. In fact, there is one African country that I've never known any other head of state, president, other than, the one. Take, for instance, Eritrea. So these are the kind of problems. And if you are talking about what the citizens should do, and that is why they have to rally among themselves. And one of the staying powers of any democratic governance is the civil society organization. They conscientize the people, and of course the opposition political parties, they ought to, make themselves credible in the sense that constructive engagement, the overall interest of the country, should be the overriding thing rather than, political ambitions or self-serving things the politicians turn to. And going by what is happening, I think it's a wake-up call to each and every one of them. They have realized that actually you cannot be running things the way you are running. You have to adhere to the constitutional provisions, open the civil space, let there be proper electoral processes and all the rest. Because Africa is blessed with credible human resources, and in anything you are doing, if you think even if you are the best, there are at least two other people that are better than you. Conversely, of course, when we reverse it, even if you are bad, there are two people that are worse than you. So it is not true. Simply because you are doing very best, you are doing well as a president or whatever, that you think you are the very best that their country has. No. Just give other people the chance and you will see they could even do better than you do. So, and earlier these leaders realized that, and cut across, it is not even the leadership of a country. No, various, categories of leaders. Take, for instance, in the Nigerian context, right from the president, the state governors, and the local government, any other person that is elected. The best thing is to, serve the people as it were. For instance, there are provisions in the Constitution. Let's look at Section 14. The primary responsibility of government is the protection of lives and properties. Have you been doing that very well to the best of your ability? So that is the question.
And you took the words right out of my mind. That's where I'm headed. I'd like us to talk about democratic governance against the backdrop of the Senate's approval of President Tinubu's request to deploy military to Benin Republic to stabilize the government there. Back home, the bride who was kidnapped in Sokoto and her friends, I doubt that they have been returned. We have stopped talking about the worshippers in Kogi State that were abducted. We still have a good number of children from the St. Mary's School in Niger State who have not returned home yet, 150 of them. So the military that is being deployed to, Benin Republic, those communities would need them to feel secure such that they know that there would be no further kidnappings in their community. And indeed, those who are still in the kidnappers' den would need them also for rescue. How does this look if we believe that charity begins at home? And you have rightly said that Section 14 of the Constitution, makes it mandatory for the government to secure lives and property.
Yeah, I can understand the growing concern in respect of this development of, the Senate approving the deployment of Nigerian troops in Benin Republic. You see, they said necessity is the mother of invention. And if you look at the relationship, and that is one of the things that people hardly understand, the complexity of the Nigerian society. In the sense that, look at, geographically we are surrounded by other countries, some of whom are mostly French. In fact, almost all of them are French-speaking. Luckily enough now, renewed understanding and all the rest of the thing. Now, the problem, any slightest problem in any of these countries, it has corresponding consequences on Nigeria, regardless of the fact that sometimes, some of the countries, they are not even as populous as a state out of the 6 states of the Federation. With that notwithstanding, take for instance, if there is any problem, the issue of humanitarian problem, for instance, how do we contend with refugees from Benin Republic? And remember, again, there is understanding or kind of relationship in terms of commerce, trading and all the rest of them. It will affect economy and the rest. So people should understand the reason why there is whether there is need to, stabilize democratic governance in that country. And beyond the initial intervention, quelling the coup, there is need to also stabilize. And then you have to understand the issue of geopolitics. Most of these Western countries are fighting proxy war on the African continent, especially in the Sahel and all the rest. So Nigeria wouldn't like, Benin Republic to be in that. You have seen the problem. An aircraft that that broke down in Burkina Faso, they are making so much noise about it. So basically, these are the kind of things that's fighting. But then, yes, Nigeria, we need all the troops we can, because we know that we don't even have enough human resources to deal with the security situation in this country. But at the same time, you have to proactively, deal with issues as they come out or they rear their heads before they, escalate into full-scale conflict. And there were several instances where Nigerians were divided. Sometimes the previous government had to give Niger Republic certain vehicle and all the rest. But the truth is that if you don't solve that problem, and Nigeria has been doing that, it sponsored even electoral processes in those countries to make sure that the democracy is stabilized. And so when the chiefs are down, they send in troops. Look at what happened, when Yahya Jammeh refused to, hand over to the elected president. Of course, Nigerian troops, and I think up to now, ECOWAS still have some troops there. So you look at it from that perspective, but then at the same time, it's a wake-up call that you should also have a kind of retrospection to look at what do you have. The earlier you enhance the security of Nigerians, the better, so that you can also live in peace, so that you can live also, you can discharge your, international obligation in terms of either ECOWAS protocol, the African Union, or the United Nations, as the case may be, because Nigeria is signatory to all these things, and we owe it as a point of duty. And above all, again, there was a request from the Benin government for that purpose, and you cannot refuse your neighbor when he or she or they are in need.
General, quite a number of issues to speak to, because we have a current political situation even in Nigeria where one party seems to be taking all of the states now with the gale of defections, and it looks like there will be more. But let me go to Mr. Jimmy as we begin to wind down. And perhaps you may want to speak to that, the current political situation in Nigeria. You've seen all of the movements. If you look at Nigeria's political map now, one color is dominant. Yes, Mr. Jimmy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, looks like one color is dominant. The APC, the PDP, would lose another governor in the coming days. I mean, all things remain equal. So speak to that as well. Does that give you any hope in this democracy that we are all trying to protect in that sense? And maybe if I can give you a double-edged sword, Is multilateralism dying as we're seeing it right now? You think there will be some sort of resuscitation?
Yes, it is dying, and that is why some countries some leaders do whatever they do, and they will always have supporters. In the past, countries will coalesce and then be able to question what a particular country is doing. But when you talk about geopolitics, if America and the West are on one side, Russia, China are on the other. So that is what is playing out. But you talked about what is happening at home. Charity begins at home. There is what you call in international relations strategic ambiguity. Usually when things are not going well at home, you find that you go out to begin to shop for successes so that it will maybe translate into, before you now finish with that, you would have been able to settle what is happening at home. It is not only in Nigeria that you have this tendency for the executive to want to control both the legislature and then the judiciary. In fact, many people, if you had expected that this current legislature, National Assembly, will say no to the president's request for approval, then you are not living in Nigeria, or you are a stranger. So, and that is what many of them are doing. They want to pocket all the other arms of government, and then begin to operate as if it were authoritarian or dictatorship. And that is why I call them rulers, because it's only rulers, and that is why you know in military, when the military are in power, they say they are rulers, because they are not governing. They are churning out something that looks like the trees, and that is where the politicians are moving to, and that is where ECOWAS, for instance, was coming from in the 70s and the 80s. Remember that we had military rulers then. And then we are going back there. ECOWAS 15 member countries, now only 10, because 5 are already and counting. So it is not democracy. When those who are practicing it, UK, America, of course, they have multi-party, but only 2 are there. To be able, opposition needs to put the government, the ruling party, on their toes. In the UK, you have a shadow government. For instance, if the government will be there, but they have a shadow set of ministers that will be looking at all the portfolios. And you also have what you call the Prime Minister question time, when everybody will be asking the minister, what do you think? Is always a sparring kind of thing between the leader of opposition and then the prime minister. But that is not what Africans are doing. What we are doing is, some people say democracy has failed. No, but I say it is the practitioners, the politicians that have failed democracy. But let me also come to the solution. I just sent out a piece that I called ECOWAS, Coup Contagion, and then Nigeria's C-130 saga. What is my recommendation? It is that we need to get ourselves reorientated about what the kind of governance we want to do. Both the politicians, the security agencies, civil society, the media, those who are voting, the electorate, because we are also enabling these politicians to do what they are doing. Look at the kind of deflection you have in Nigeria. Or is it defection? Yes, everybody is moving. There is party. Remember that Abacha did such a thing. In fact, he was, what was it? They were pleading to him to come and head the parties. I don't know the term they used in that time, for him to, they have, is it approved or sanctioned him, or they have given him the power to come and rule Nigeria. We know where that ended. It is not the good thing for a country to run one party. We are coming from there. One party state cannot survive. It's not sustainable. So let all these stakeholders that I have named, let those who are talk, who are beating the drum that we are now in charge. It is one party. It's not going to work. And those who are not there, do something. You know, you can't wait. They give you whatever it is that you are given during an election, during one cycle. And then you allow the politicians until another time they come to you, either T-shirt or rice or bread or whatever. How much are they going to give you that will make you sell your vote or sell your conscience? So we are all in this together. Let us work for it. Let the electorate, the civil society, the media. You can see the media, where media is even quiet. They are not, maybe because they are afraid. And the government has weaponized poverty or cannot stand opposition or criticism. It's not only in Nigeria, but everybody is looking up to Nigeria as the largest black nation. Nigeria should come, you know, to the table. Nigeria should lead. What is happening in ECOWAS today is because of the leadership that we have in Nigeria. For the 8 years that President Buhari was there, you said you don't talk ill of about the death. But it is because of the neglect of what was happening in ECOWAS. This is what has brought that organization here. There is no ECOWAS without Nigeria.
Indeed.
Nigeria ought to take up its own responsibility.
Indeed, that would be a fine place to anchor it. And you know, because sometimes the human mind can be very fragile, and that's why we need reminders. And we'll continue to have this conversation, but we must anchor at this point. And thank you very much. We've been talking with Mr. Paul Ejime, consultant to ECOWAS and international communications and media strategies. And also not forgetting Brigadier General Usman Sani, former Army spokesman, who joined us from our Abuja studio. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.